Hello and welcome to another adventure on this planet Earth. This week we continue my 5 favorite series with my 5 favorite things about Vietnam. Yeah, this is the second in my series of my 5 favorite things. Vietnam is possibly the most beautiful country I've ever been in, but I wouldn't recommend living there. About 1,000 miles from north to south, Vietnam is about the size of the state of New Mexico, with about 1/4 the population of the entire United States. With all those people, they've reported only 35 deaths from COVID-19, and all of those were mostly in August. Vietnam was a part of China for nearly 1,000 years, and then in the late 1800s it became a French protectorate until about the 1950s. As most Americans know, the Communist North won its Civil War in 1975, and the country suffered for a while. But about a decade later, the country underwent economic and political reform that really turned it around, and the country has been thriving. Well, the first of my 5 favorite reasons for Vietnam is just, as an American, is exploring the country for its war history. We call it the Vietnam War, of course. They have a variety of names. Basically, it was their civil war. Traveling throughout the country, you'll see where Vietnamese hid entire villages inside tunnels to escape the Allied bombings. Near Saigon are the Cu Chi tunnels, a strong tourist place, but still an engaging historical document of life back in the Civil War. In Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City, you'll find the War Remnants Museum. It's a bit unnerving to visit there and to see that Americans are not viewed as the glorious heroes we like to think we are. Even in southern Vietnam. Up in Hanoi, you can visit the Hanoi Hilton, former French prison that was turned into a prisoner of war camp. And there's the lake that John McCain was fished out of after he was shot down. Down in Saigon, you can see the very tower that was documented in a famous photograph. It's actually the elevator shaft for an apartment building that's still in use. One of the most striking things that I noticed throughout Vietnam, north and south, was they have no ill will toward Americans. Yeah, it's 50 years later, several generations, but it's beautiful that they still welcome us as their guests, even though they're still clearing out unexploded ordnance from that war. The second thing that I loved about Vietnam is touring. It is a tall country, and a very popular thing for tourists to do is to rent a motorbike or a car in one of the 2 major cities, Saigon or Hanoi, and travel between the 2. Take the trip from south to north or north to south, and take your time. There's a beautiful highway, the Ho Chi Minh Highway, not to be confused with what we knew as the Ho Chi Minh Trail, but an actual federal highway that goes from north to south. Or you can go out along the coast and see the beautiful, beautiful coastal cities. You can either rent a motorcycle in either of the cities and return it in the other. Then you can also just buy a motorbike really cheap and resell it when you get to the other city. If you have time, do go on the Northern Loop. I highly recommend a website called Vietnam Coracle. Well, my number 3 favorite thing to do about Vietnam is to complain about the traffic. And boy, I can go on and on and on about that. That is the main reason why I would not retire in Vietnam. Traffic in Vietnam is best described as total anarchy. There are just apparently no rules. There's no enforcement of rules. There seems to be plenty of police officers around, but other than that, it is just a wild free-for-all. I got pissed off more than once, believe me. People just riding the wrong direction in my lane, and with absolutely no regard. It was just the way of life for them. Incredibly frustrating. Incredibly. You know, I describe traffic and many things in life along with music. Say there's classical music and there's jazz. Now, in America, traffic is very classical. Everything has to be done a certain way. Speed limits, stop signs, lanes of traffic. And just like a classical musician will study every note and play every note perfectly, the jazz musician doesn't read sheet music, doesn't really care. Vietnam is total jazz. And if you go in there with a classical attitude, you won't last long. It didn't occur to me just how frustrating Vietnam was until I went to another country, Laos and then Thailand. And I actually talked to friends about it. And I remember how many times a week in Vietnam I was deeply frustrated, angry. And how many times a month or year that happens in other countries. Just doesn't. Traffic in Vietnam will test you. It will try you. It is a very, very frustrating thing. And it's completely the government's fault. It's not the Vietnamese people. They are wonderful, beautiful people. They just don't know how to drive, and they have very few traffic rules. It is kind of like having surgery in a kindergarten. It affects you not just on the roads. One of the most annoying things about traffic in Vietnam is people blow their horn everywhere. When they're passing somebody, after they've passed somebody, before they pass somebody. As they go through an intersection, as they approach an intersection, as they approach anybody, they blow their horn. It is totally self-defense. In America, we blow our horn because we're upset at someone because they just did something stupid. And when somebody blows their horn at you in America, your first instinct is to be offended. But in Vietnam, no. It is just a way of life. It's a form of music for them. So if you can get past that while you're riding, then you have to deal with it as you're not riding. Sitting in a cafe on a city street, anywhere near an intersection, and you will hear horns blowing every minute. It's just background noise. And if you can't put it in your background, good luck. You will be frustrated. That being said, there's probably zero road rage in Vietnam and most Southeast Asian countries. I mean, just none. Because, it's jazz, man, it's jazz. Number 4 thing I like to do in Vietnam is photograph things, of course. I like photographing the building. They have a beautiful combination of architectures heavily influenced by the French, who occupied the country for decades. A fascinating thing I've noticed in Southeast Asia, but more so in Vietnam, are the skinny houses. Apparently people buy plots maybe 15 feet wide, and they'll build 3 or 4 floors on there, and they'll cram them together. Yeah, a fascinating thing that I found in Vietnam are the wrong houses. Usually community centers designed to really stand out. I would honestly love to live in one of these. My number 5 favorite thing to do in Vietnam is ride the bridges. Vietnam has a lot of rivers, lakes, and coastline. And boy, there must be thousands of bridges throughout the country. Everything from your shaky wooden bridge to a lot of cable stay bridges, many concrete ones. My favorite bridge was the Dragon Bridge, of course, there in Da Nang. I understand the mouth just lights up with the gas torch. Well, aside from some human rights violations, terrible relationship with the media, and its single-party system, Vietnam is a far better country for its people than what we had envisioned in the 1950s if horrible communism and socialism were to take over. But then there's the traffic. And I just hope that we can remember that some politicians love to put enemies between us, making us fear unseen threats, and promising that only they are the ones who can help us. Well, thanks for hanging. I hope you enjoyed my latest adventure. I'm Mark Gilchrist, and I am, and you are, we all are, on this planet Earth.